Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Eat. I'm trying to figure out a good system here with this mic. I don't want to be too close. It's kind of an eyesore in the middle here. I feel like it detracts from my ability to really get into my topic. But anyways, welcome back. I'm super happy that you're here today. Today, we're going to be talking about wellness myths that I used to believe along my journey. Now, if you have not yet listened to part one, I will link it in the show notes. Go listen to part one. You don't have to listen to part one first to then listen to part two. However, I'm making this kind of an ongoing series because I think it's important for me to speak on not only my experience, but also share on myths that maybe resonate with you. Maybe they're myths that you currently have, implemented into your routine, or maybe you too have at one point believed that, whatever the case is, right? But in my opinion, and that's important, in my opinion, they are in fact myths about being healthful, being healthy, and I want to take the time to touch on them. So today we're going to be covering 3 different myths. As I said, this is an ongoing series, so go take a listen to part 1. There will be more parts to come, but we're talking about 3 myths along a wellness journey that have either derailed me, that have contributed to my confusion, that have caused dysfunction, whatever the case may be. They are in fact myths. They are in fact in the past, and now I have learned from them, and I hope to share some insight and some wisdom based on my experience for you. So as always, let's talk about what I'm drinking. I have the rest of my electrolytes by Peak. These are my absolute favorite. I've been drinking them for probably almost 2 years now. They are so good. They've helped my skin a lot, and I'm obsessed with them, and I drink them every single day with my workout. So this is my preferred electrolyte. I will link the Peak information in the show notes. They are by Peak, and you can get their matcha and their beauty electrolytes in their Radiant Skin Duo for a discount by following the link. So take a look there. I also have some iced tea. It's now less ice and it's melted away. But this is the Simbi Daily Hydration Tea, and what I've been doing with it is I've been putting my liposomal vitamin C by Symbiotica in it. So I love Symbiotica. You all know this. If you followed me on any social media platform or you've listened to the podcast, I've shared on them a number of times. But I prefer to ingest them in more creative ways than just taking them, as they are, right? So mixing them into my water. I will add the magnesium to my matcha. That's something I really love. I'm actually waiting on a shipment of magnesium, but I love getting creative with them and adding them in different ways, right? It makes my life easier, but it's also fun to figure out, this one actually mixes well into this. I did their Golden Mind supplement, which is all brain health, cognitive health supporting nutrients and even herbs, into my mud water. I believe it was my matcha chai mud water, because the flavor of the Golden Mind is vanilla chai. So that I was so excited about. I'm like, this is perfect. And it really mixed well. Speaking of mud water is now part of my list of affiliate brands. I tried their products a couple weeks ago and I love them. I just tried their Rest blend last night before bed, and it was everything. I was looking forward to it all day long. So stay tuned for next month's Let's Eat Family Dinner episode, because I'll talk more about mud water and what they're about and why I love them. But I will also put the show notes or the link in the show notes down below if you want to check them out and if you want to give them a go. They're a great alternative to drinking coffee, something to have before bed. If you're a matcha drinker, whatever it is that you enjoy, there's a couple different options that you can try. And then lastly, I have, which I guess this is a little bit excessive, but what is this? This is Simbi's anti-inflammatory tea and liver support tea and some dandelion root. I made this infusion yesterday. I got this glass teapot from Target. It was $15, and I've been meaning to get a teapot or the contraption that allows you to steep loose leaf tea, because all of Simbi's tea are loose leaf and I have plenty of them. So I saw this, and it's the cutest glass pot and has a stainless steel center for you to steep your tea in. and I love it. So I've been going crazy just these past few days. I got it on Sunday and it's Tuesday. So 2 days I've been using this and I love it. I love it so much and I'm so excited. And now I have to find more loose leaf tea brands to incorporate. I love Simbi, don't get me wrong, but if there are others that you love, please let me know because I am in the market for some more loose leaf tea, but it's so much fun. And now I'm just making an abundance of tea. So I'm refrigerating it. I'm trying to drink it all. So that's why there's so much here. And then I also added the rest of my Shilajit, which I talked about on last family dinner episode with ginger juice and lemon juice. So there's just a lot happening, but what else is new? You know, I love my assortment of beverages. So it is what it is. So let's get into today's episode. All right. 3 wellness myths debunked. All right. 3 wellness myths debunked. Try saying that 3 times fast. Okay. So the first myth, all supplements are created equal. Now I'll preface this by saying, go listen to my episode with Sarah Keel. She is a supplement expert. I'll link it in the show notes just so you can listen in on her guidance behind choosing supplements. Okay. I really would love to have her again on the podcast. So that is to be determined and to be scheduled. But she is a wealth of knowledge and it was so much fun interviewing her and learning more about supplements from her perspective and her experience. So go take a listen to that episode if you're interested in learning more about supplements. But when it comes to supplementation, this has been a long journey for me. Okay. A long journey. And I'm thinking back to maybe high school or even into college. I don't really know how much I really supplemented, but I certainly did not know about supplement quality. I didn't know about how to read a label on a supplement. I didn't know anything, right? And as I've kind of moved through the years, and now I'm actually a certified dietary supplement professional in the state of New Jersey as a health coach. I don't know how many health coaches follow this law, but in the state of New Jersey as a health coach, I can't make supplement recommendations necessarily. So I went ahead and got another certification through I'm going to always mess this up. The acronym is NANP. So it's the National Association for Nutritional Professionals, I believe is what it's called. And I became a certified dietary supplement professional so I could administer this guidance, right? But over the course of my 20s, I just think about the choices that I made when it comes to supplements, the locations I purchased supplements from, the claims and the marketing that I bought into around supplements. And it's truly, and I use this phrase because this is what Sarah said, it is the wild, wild west. Okay. I liken the supplement industry to the experience you have in the food industry because they are so similar in terms of how much is out there and how deceiving these companies are. I find it so important for us to really draw our attention to supplement quality because so many brands out there are marketing a product. Now, you might want to sit down for this, that don't even contain the nutrient, vitamin, mineral, whatever it is that it claims to contain. Now, if that does not incentivize you to do your research and find brands you trust, I don't know what will. Okay. Especially now that health and wellness has kind of taken this surge to some extent. I think ever since the pandemic, there's been more of a intentionality behind taking care of ourselves and, health and wellness. And don't get me wrong, we have a ways to go, right? There's certainly lots of room for growth here, but I think people are taking this more into consideration. And I think the industry is, harping on that, right? Is taking advantage of that. And so when it comes to choosing high quality supplements, this was not something that I ever knew. And so this concept of all supplements are created equal basically implies that no matter what you buy, whether it's the $5 vitamin C you're getting from CVS or the liposomal vitamin C that you're getting from a researched, well-sourced brand, that doesn't really matter. Okay, it doesn't really matter what you're buying, doesn't matter where you're getting it, it's all the same. And that could not be farther from the truth. Now, this is not to say that you cannot find a $10 supplement that is not effective, that is not high quality, right? Like, absolutely. And it's also not to say that the $100, $120 supplements that are out there are, by nature of their price, already, just assumed to be higher quality. Like, that's not the case too. I think this kind of goes for kind of like drugstore makeup and more expensive makeup, where your girl's shopping at Target and at CVS for some of her makeup, and I'm not ashamed to say it because I'm not a makeup person and I'm not going to always go to Ulta or Sephora. But you can find some good quality makeup at the drugstore, right? And you can also find some really not good makeup at Sephora that's $100 and you just don't buy it, right? Because you're just not interested, or you tried it once and, I'd rather buy my $10 L'Oreal mascara than buy something that's way overpriced and ends up drying out anyways, right? Because that's just how it works. I would much rather spend my money on high quality supplements than buy makeup, but that's just my personal preference. So when it comes to quality, it does really matter. And it does matter in terms of bioavailability. How is my body absorbing this? How is this product sourced? Right? Is this product third-party tested? There's so many factors that go into reading a supplement label, understanding other ingredients, understanding proprietary blends, right? A lot of these greens powder nowadays, I'll just use this as an example, have these proprietary blends, which essentially means this is a blend of all of these ingredients that are listed, but we're not going to disclose to you how much of each ingredient this proprietary blend contains. Okay, one brand comes to mind, and I'll keep my mouth shut, but there's one brand that does this, and it's just very deceiving, right, to the consumer, because the consumer is going to see, oh, this has, a good quality spirulina in it, right? And maybe it's, in that proprietary blend, but we don't know how much of it is in there. So if you're looking for a supplement that has spirulina in it, right? If you're going for a supplement that is, I want spirulina, I want to incorporate that into my diet, and you're buying a product that is a proprietary blend that contains spirulina, not to say that it's a bad product, but you don't know how much spirulina is actually in there. Is there another product that's maybe, equal price or maybe a little bit more expensive, but is more clear about how much is in there based on the dosage you're looking for, based on the product that you want, right? So really understanding your supplements are not created equal. Even further, and this is kind of similar to the conversation I had with Sarah many months ago. Where are you buying your product from? I know how convenient it is to buy my products from Amazon, and I'm still guilty of that in some capacity, right? Like, not all cases. I try really hard to purchase all of my supplements from the retailer themselves. But this messes with the quality. We were talking, I believe, on the episode about probiotics. And if you're buying a probiotic from Amazon, that probiotic could be sitting on a shelf in a massive Amazon warehouse that has no temperature regulation, right? Like, has no concern necessarily. I don't say concern. That sounds like, oh, Amazon doesn't care. No, it's about, if that probiotic is not being stored properly, is there any living bacteria in these probiotics left for you to actually get the benefit from them if it's stored in a space that's not supportive of the product itself, stored with everything else that Amazon has to offer? It's stored with the lawnmowers, it's stored with the potato chips, it's stored with the Adidas sneakers, right? It's stored with all the things, none of those things needing really any kind of care, right? And you have this probiotic that's now been sitting there for who knows how long, and that's now being delivered to your door. Now, don't get me wrong, it's being delivered to your door and next day shipping, and we love that, okay? But in terms of maintaining the quality and the integrity of the product, I would suggest, if you can, purchasing your supplements from somewhere that is coming directly from the retailer. Okay, that would be my suggestion. I just think about over the course of my 20s and the supplements I incorporated and not really knowing why I was doing it or seeing that someone else was doing it and adding it in. And I think just generally speaking, supplements, I believe, can be a really valuable part of your wellness routine. And I think in some ways, a lot of us could use the extra support because the food that we're eating is just not as nutrient dense as it should be, right? But wasting your money on buying products just because you think you need to take it, or products that are cheap and, you know, they're cheap, or they're, oh, buy one get one free or whatever it is, right? Just to take it, I would suggest against that. I would suggest working with someone who can support you in understanding what is it that my body needs. At this moment of time, I can't offer testing, and that's something that I would really love to do and I plan to do. That's my 2025 goal. And so, I think working with someone like a functional practitioner, or even just meeting with your healthcare provider and getting some sort of blood work done to understand your levels, that can at least give you some guidance. I'm someone who likes to suggest some general supplements just because I feel like the vast majority can benefit from things like omega-3s or magnesium. But it really does matter what works and what's needed for you, right? Ultimately, that's what's most important, is that you are looking at your own body's needs. So my greatest takeaway for this, and I think the myth that I want to debunk, is the fact that all supplements are not created equal. You can find high quality supplements and, supplements that are worth your while. And there's plenty of them out there, but there's also equally as many, if not more, supplements that are just total BS. And really sharpening that skill set, just like you would sharpen your skill set to look at ingredient labels of food. Really start to familiarize yourself of, what am I looking for, right? Look at the ingredients. What do the other ingredients say? Are these, supplements, are the supplements that you're looking at, are they loaded with fillers? What form of the supplement? I talked about this on another podcast about magnesium. There's magnesium malate, there's magnesium glycinate, there's magnesium L-threonate, there's magnesium oxide, there's magnesium citrate, right? There's so many different forms of magnesium. So understanding, okay, what type of magnesium is best for what I'm looking to achieve here? Understanding dosage. Understanding, do I need to be taking supplements, like D3 with K2 because of the interaction within the body, the need for them to be paired together, right? Considering these things that you probably wouldn't have otherwise known, and how easy it is for us to just go out to the store and just buy supplements and say, I'm just going to start taking these, and not really know what we're doing. And I say this from a place of empathy because I have been there. Okay. I have been there. And, I'm certainly not the supplement expert by any means, right? There's plenty of others out there that can guide you more, more thoroughly in this department. I know my fair share and I feel confident to speak on it, but I think really understanding the supplement world and also taking caution in it, right? Taking things kind of just frivolously can also present harm to the body. Right? If you're overdosing on certain types of nutrients or certain minerals and throwing off a certain mineral balance within the body, or, if you're taking a medication and you take a supplement and you're not aware of the interaction, right? Like, there's a lot of, delicateness that has to come. Oh, I almost said delicacy, which I think I said that before, and I don't think that that's right, because that's like, oh, a delicacy. Like the food was a delicacy. I said delicateness. There's a delicateness that comes along with choosing supplements and, finding some brands that work for you. I don't necessarily even believe that you should only find one brand and say, okay, I'm only going to buy from this brand. I think that there are certain brands that are superstars in probiotics. There are certain brands that are superstars in omega-3s. There are certain brands that are superstars in other areas, right? So composing a list and getting to know these brands, read about them. Most of their websites have information about their sourcing, their testing. Start to look at, what are the seals of approval? What are the stamps of approval I should be looking for on the bottles about testing, about sourcing? These are all things you want to consider as it relates to supplementation, and finding some brands that are legitimate, even if it costs another $10, $15, for the sake of getting a supplement that's actually going to do what you're looking for it to do. It's actually going to support the body in the way that you want it to. I think that that's worth it. I think that's worth it. But My tried and true, eternal, perpetual suggestion is always to try and focus on real whole foods first. I think a lot of times we are thinking we need to supplement, but our diet's still not where it needs to be. I see this all the time. People are trying to add in supplements, but their diet is not so great, and I think that's going to balance it out. You cannot out supplement a poor diet. The nutrition from food is always going to be superior than the nutrition from supplements because of the way your body is able to utilize it. Okay. And even further, if you have dysfunction in your gut in any way, you might not even be absorbing these supplements. Okay. So consider that too. You are what you eat, you are what you absorb. So you could be taking all these supplements, but if your gut's a hot mess, we have to call that into question. Okay, so myth number 1, all supplements are created equal. That is not the case. You have to do your research. If you want any guidance, I'm happy to support you in understanding your supplements a little bit further. Or if you ever have a brand that you're like, what's this about? Send me the information. I can take a look at it for you. I can show you what to look at. But I really think that this is something that needs to be addressed more often. Excuse me, because I just don't think it is. I think we kind of take initiative in just buying supplements, or, oh, I had this, so I just started taking it, whatever it is, right? And I think that is no good. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. Next myth. Ooh, this one gets me going. Okay, this one gets me going. Sleep doesn't matter. And it is maybe a little bit extreme, right? But sleep has nothing to do with our mood, our digestion, our focus, our hormones, our blood sugar. Yes, it does. Sleep is so much more than just getting sleep. Okay? What I meant to say. Sleep deprivation causes so much more trouble than just feeling tired. Okay? This is something that I, for many years, did not give much thought to it. Aside from maybe if you are sick, you should rest. And even then, I remember, oh my goodness, I was maybe 21, maybe 22, and I was so sick. And it was one of those sicknesses, it's like in your chest, in your throat, oh my goodness. And I chose to go out. I don't know where I went. I went with one of my best friends, and I chose to go out with her and maybe get a drink. And I think back to, I don't know why that is so imprinted in my brain. But like, I think about how sick I was, and I said, yes, let me go drink alcohol and not sleep. Because this is a good recipe. This is a good idea. This combination is good. Okay? No, not good. And I mean, oh my goodness, it makes my skin crawl just thinking about it, because like that choice that I made, like my poor body is like, please just go to sleep and drink soup. And I'm like, no, we're going to go have some red wine and stay up way past our bedtime. We're going to do that. So shame on past Emily. But sleep is, and I've said this before, and I said this actually in a recent episode, sleep is the bedrock of our health. If we are not sleeping, nutrition and exercise are less than effective, and maybe not even effective at all. Okay, that's an extreme. But their efficacy is significantly less if we are not sleeping. Now, when it comes to sleep deprivation, this is an issue. Sleep is more than just, oh, well, I've been laying in bed for 8 hours. Sleep is actual getting restorative quality rest. And if we are not doing that, that is going to result in a whole host of physical and mental health issues, right? Not just in the immediate term, but in the long term over the course of time. So sleep deprivation is considered 6.5 hours or less. Some experts say 7, okay? But I think 6.5 hours or less. So now doing that personal audit of how much sleep you're getting, and actual sleep, Okay. Not just, oh, I toss and turn all night and I'm in bed, so I'm sleeping, right? Good quality restorative sleep. Where do you fall? And if you say, I really don't get, maybe 4 hours, that's all I get. And some people say, oh, that's all I need, right? But I would consider, like, what does your daily functioning feel like? What does that look like? Are you feeling good throughout the day? Are you feeling rested? Do you need a mid-afternoon nap, right? What is your quality of life? And how can you look at it through the lens of how your quality of sleep is? For so many years, I was so naive to the influence of sleep on my health. I also worked a lot of late nights as a bartender. So I was up maybe 12, 1 o'clock. I'd get home. I'd kind of, I wouldn't go immediately to bed, but I wouldn't, I remember getting home and I would just take my makeup off and kind of, unwind a little bit, but not always. And sometimes I would just get home and try to go to bed, which I think that probably wasn't the most effective way to get into bed and get to sleep, because I should give myself some time to unwind. But needless to say, my sleep schedule was kind of all over the place because I was up so late. I was sleeping in, and it kind of was a little bit dysregulated, right? And I just didn't understand how this was impacting my health. I didn't understand like what the value of it was in relation to how I was feeling. I just knew, okay, if I'm not sleeping, I'm going to be tired, right? But at the end of the day, sleep is one of the best things that we can do for our health and our bodies. Sleep is an opportunity for our bodies to reset. If you look at Eastern medicine, every couple hours, there is a certain organ system that is most active. Okay, so it's over the course of the night, and I couldn't rattle it off. I think maybe the gallbladder is like 1 to 3, maybe the liver is 2 to 4. I forget exactly what it is. You can look it up and do, Eastern medicine, sleep and organ systems or something, right? And you can read more about it. But basically, every single, chunk of time over the course of the night that we're sleeping, our organs step up to the plate and do their jobs, right? And if we're not sleeping, think about how problematic that is to the whole body, right? Sleep is one of the best ways to detox, right? We hear detox and we think juice cleanses or, cutting out all these foods or whatever the case is. Actually, just sleeping. That gives our innate detox pathways the opportunity to do what they need to do. I really like to use this example, and I talk about this a lot, and I'm sure I've talked about it before, but this is in relation to our brain health, cognitive health. Okay. So I always use this example of, imagine that our brains are I wanted to say city and community at the same time, and that didn't come out right. A city or community, whatever you want to look at it as. Okay. And all of the neurons and all the cells in our brains are the houses, residential, commercial buildings, however you want to mentally compose your brain as being like a town, a city, a community. Okay. And there's part of our lymphatic system, which is part of detox and drainage and so forth, that is the glymphatic system. And the glymphatic system is activated at night when we're sleeping. All right. And basically, this glymphatic system is our cleanup crew. So when you think about going to sleep, this is when this glymphatic system is activated. And what happens is the cleanup crew, we'll say the garbage men, I guess garbage men or women, they go from driveway to driveway, from dumpster to dumpster. I guess a dumpster, yeah, because they take the garbage, right? And they remove the trash from the ends of the driveways that the residents put out every single night. Okay. And if we're thinking about this analogy, the trash is the cognitive debris, the information that we're not storing that we don't need to remember. Maybe it's some sort of emotion. There's a lot of emotional processing that happens overnight. But all of this cognitive debris, neurotoxic information and so forth is sent out into these garbage cans to be collected by our glymphatic system, our cleanup crew. So you can imagine, now this is a little bit unrealistic, right? We're not putting our garbage out every single night. But if you think about in this kind of hypothetical situation, if the glymphatic system, our cleanup crew, is not sent out to collect the garbage because we're not sleeping, then think about all of that mental buildup, all the cognitive debris, all the garbage that is going to build up if then the next night the resident takes the garbage down to the end of the driveway, and now there's 2 garbage cans waiting to be picked up. And then over the course of time, think about how disruptive this is, right? 1 in 3 Americans don't get enough sleep, and 75% of Americans say that they are tired. So clearly there's something going on. And I think a lot of our modern life and a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is not conducive to getting good quality sleep. And that's just the reality. Caffeine, alcohol, sugar, blue light, all of these things, stress, all of these things prevent us from getting sleep. And I don't think we consciously recognize the value of sleep. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Our sleep is critical. It lays the foundation. I've shared this before, but when we're not sleeping, our hunger hormones are dysregulated. So our ghrelin is increased, which is the hunger hormone that tells us we're hungry. And our leptin reduces, which is the hormone that tells us we're full, right? There's absolutely research to support sleep deprivation and the impact on our mental health. 1 night of poor sleep deprivation contributes to an increase in anxiety levels by 40%. Sleep is just so essential. And I'm so grateful to have gotten to a place now where my sleep is sacred to me. Now, I've also cultivated my schedule to some extent where I no longer work at night, right? Like I have a little bit more flexibility, but I prioritize my sleep like it's a job. Honestly, I really do. And I know that that's not realistic for everyone, but the more that you can take your sleep into consideration and take it seriously, the better off your health will be. And I say that with such confidence. That's why I'm such a big believer in sleep routines, sleep hygiene. Sleep is so restorative for us, for our health. And if we continue to operate through the lens that I'll sleep when I'm dead, or sleep isn't really that important, if I don't get enough sleep, it's only impacting my level of energy, right? It's not that big of a deal. But there's so much out there that says otherwise. I will link an expert in the show notes, Dr. Matthew Walker. He is a sleep expert. He's brilliant, and he is so passionate about sleep. And I really appreciate what he's doing and what he's sharing. So you can go take a look at his work. He wrote a book called Why We Sleep. I have it somewhere in this assortment behind me. I don't know if I've actually gotten all the way through it, but that's definitely on my list of to-dos, just so I can really, round out my understanding of why we actually need to sleep, because I think that's still partially a mystery to the researchers to some extent, is why we are sleeping. But I think it's very clear that it's playing a pivotal part in our body's functioning, in our biology, if it's something that we're doing for such an amount of time every single day, right? So take a look at his research and what he's doing. But most importantly, if you need support in your sleep, if you're having sleep disturbances or you're having trouble with sleep in any way, there's a lot of driving factors that could be at play here. Whether it's a hormonal issue, whether it's, something with your cortisol, which would be a hormonal issue, whether it's what you're doing before bed, right? Like it could be a gut issue, right? Like there's a number of things that could be contributing to this. But I really encourage you to take initiative in understanding this better, because ultimately it's not something to be overlooked because of how much of an influence it has on our health. And for so many years, I really discredited it. I didn't pay attention to it. And it's really so pivotal. Just as eating real whole foods are, just as moving your body, setting boundaries with sleep is huge. And I'm going to speak more on my more recent nighttime rituals in the next episode of Let's Eat Family Dinner. So stay tuned, because I shared on Instagram yesterday about my go-to wind down rituals, and I want to talk a little bit more about them in an upcoming episode. So coming soon. All right. So nextly, and I forgot to mention, sleep deprivation is inherently very stressful. Okay. So all of the mechanisms in our body that are impaired by stress, they are aggravated when we're not sleeping. If we're sleep deprived, we are inducing a state of stress in the body, and that's going to wreak havoc in a number of different ways. Okay. So think about that too, that it's, these kind of low grade states that our body's just perpetually in when we're not getting enough sleep. And that contributes to all sorts of dysfunction when our body's under stress. I mean, don't even get me started on stress. right? You know how I can get out of hand when we talk about stress, okay? All right, the next myth I want to share, because I think it's a pretty common misconception, and I think there's kind of two sides to it that I want to speak on. So please hold. I never drink when I'm in these episodes, and then I'm like, by the end, I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So this myth is I have to follow a plan to be healthy. I have to be very diet focused. There has to be structure. Now, I want to say one caveat to this is I think people like routine. They like being told what to do. They like structure. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But I think what's problematic about this is that when we get too rigid or we feel like we have to follow some sort of structure, it leads to like a lack of sustainability in the long term. So for example, if we're too rigid with what we're allowed to eat and what we're not allowed to eat, and we want this kind of very structured plan, what happens when we don't eat according to plan? We failed. We've, been unsuccessful. We should give up, right? That's oftentimes the energy. And I think for me, especially in my late teens, early 20s, that was kind of the mentality that I had around eating, that it always had to be a diet if I wanted to eat healthy. So it had to be some sort of structured plan. I know I did a couple different types of like programs when I was around that age, 19, 20. But it always had to be like this structure. It wasn't necessarily just eating more real whole foods and letting that be enough. So I'm hoping that I make sense by this, because I think from my perspective, it felt like in order to be healthy, you had to have some plan in place, some rigidity, some structure. But if I didn't follow a plan, it meant I could just eat processed foods, ultra processed foods, and that wasn't necessarily the most healthful. But I think that there's a lot of gray area. It doesn't have to be such a divided black and white, because for those of you who know me, I am all about, welcoming all foods to the table and avoiding that rigidity and that structure and that plan, because I don't think that's effective. I don't think it's sustainable. And from my personal experience, it certainly hasn't been. But I think for so long, I felt like I had to follow some sort of step-by-step plan. This is what you're eating today. This is what you're prepping for the week, and so forth, which I think in some capacity that can be effective for people, but it's not the only way, right? I'm a big believer in just choosing an abundance of real whole foods, making recipes that taste good, that are nourishing, that are fueling for me, making space for times of balance where, you want to have the ice cream cone down the shore, and that's fine. But filling my fridge with predominantly real whole foods, all real whole foods if possible, really being aware of what I'm consuming, but not necessarily needing it to be some sort of plan or structure, because I think that gives very much the energy of there's a start date and an end date. And for me personally, that is very diet focused, right? It's very diet minded when we're thinking about, well, I'm just doing this for 6 weeks and then we'll see what happens. Instead, I want to blur those lines, and I just want it to be, let's just start incorporating real whole foods and start to incorporate things that are more wholesome and watch everything kind of fall away. And then that organically can become a lifestyle. And this is something I just didn't have in my early 20s. This is not something that I necessarily, knew was more effective. And so I encourage you that if this is an area that you feel like you struggle with, or you feel like you are always reaching for diet programs or, this cleanse or whatever the case is, I am happy to support you, of course, as always, in maybe blurring those boundaries, but also educating you on how to avoid that mentality. Because I think that that's the problem. It's the mentality that if we're eating healthfully, it means we're on a diet. And I think that puts us in very two distinct categories of I'm on a diet or I'm not on a diet. And it just doesn't have to be that way. That's such an all or nothing perspective. And even, on a diet does not necessarily mean that you're doing things in a healthful way, right? How often do we see these programs that are considered diets, healthy diets, right? And they're terrible. They're wrecking our hormones, our gut. They're loaded with artificial ingredients. I mean, they're terrible, right? So I want to encourage you with this, because this is something that I felt in order to be healthy, you had to follow this perpetual diet that put you in a box, that limited you. And it just doesn't have to be that way. I wish the word diet could just be eliminated for entirety, right? Like just for the rest of our lives. Like let's just not entirety, eternity. Am I okay today? For eternity, right? Because I think it just promotes this energy and this belief system that it has to be this kind of rigid, this is when I'm starting, this is when I'm ending. And I just really don't care for that. Okay. So I hope that was clear. The myth is I have to follow a plan to be healthy. It has to be a diet of some kind. And I'm trying to debunk it by saying that doesn't have to be the case. You can welcome lots of different foods. Food and health about foods is on a spectrum. And just starting to incorporate more real whole foods into your life is going to inevitably help you create a more sustainable lifestyle, because it's not like I'm starting on Monday and I have to do it, hard and 100% perfectly, right? Instead, you're just incorporating more real whole foods and letting that process unfold gradually and watching things change for you versus the alternative that I just mentioned. And this is a big part of my philosophy in my work with clients. Huge, 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 huge. It's not about a diet program. And it's cliche. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. But I mean that with every fiber of my being. That's really what it is. And that's what worked for me. That's what helped me be most effective. One day I woke up and here I am, right? And I think about the years that I've invested in understanding my body and understanding things more so that I can create a plate that's well balanced, that's nourishing, and not any ounce of me feels deprived, restricted, because I know what I'm doing is effective. I know what I'm doing is nourishing. And that's what's most important. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode of Let's Eat, where we're talking about wellness myths debunked. I'm wondering if any of these resonated with you. If that's the case, please leave a comment. I know that's a new option. It's a new feature on the podcast. You can leave a comment, or please feel free to DM me. I'd be happy to talk over DMs. But this is important to me because I really want to draw more from my personal experience about things that I personally struggled with, or I believed, or I utilized that weren't effective for me, that led me down a pathway of confusion. And now in retrospect, I can use this clarity to say, hey, this is what I did. You can try it too, right? If it works for you, if it works for you, right? Everyone's different, but I feel called to share my experience on it because I think it brings value. So thank you so much for being here, for tuning into today's episode. Like I said, all of the information that I mentioned that I would link in the show notes is in the show notes. So take a look. You can go listen to part 1 of Wellness Myths Debunked and stay tuned for more episodes like this in the future. But until then, thank you for joining me at the table and be well.